Okay, Zach, so I'm super excited because you and I have been talking about the insanity, which is the Utah housing market of 2025. And so much of it, there's a lot of false information out there. So many people are relying on whatever source they get their media from. So it's kind of like whoever they follow, whatever, whoever they think is savvy, they're actually getting housing market information, and it's not really translating into the reality of the market. So we thought it would be fun to like kind of analyze some of the, like, what is the reality of the market? What's happening currently in the Utah housing market? So let's get started. Let's talk about some recent changes that are happening in the loan department.
Perfect. Well, these are two numbers that I'm really excited for. So the first one is the max conventional loan amount has now changed to 819 as of right now. We know that we're going to get the official number like midway through December, and we know it'll be higher than 819, but for now we can actually lock loans, close loans at the 819 number, which is fantastic. And the other number that's come out recently too is HomeReady upped the income limits that they'll allow you to do on a conventional loan that's 3% down. And HomeReady is essentially a program that gives you lower MI and sometimes a better interest rate. And they moved their number up about 9 or 10,000 to now to be 94,960 as that income threshold. So those are two good things that I've seen in the market as of recent, and we're happy to see those numbers both go up.
I love it. That's great news. And just talking about Utah in general, like we still do have low inventory. And I think that people are really not understanding that because buyers do have choices right now and there is negotiation, but then there's a bunch of other stuff, like even multiple offers on some properties. So there's this weird thing happening, and that's why it's so crazy. Like it's the most confusing real estate market. I've been doing this for 20 years and it really is very confusing. So some houses, like they've been on the market for 120 days, and we're like, score, let's figure out if there's a good deal to be had. Other houses, like they're being put on the market and they're automatically have offers. I'm running out tonight to show a client. We were just going to casually go look. We were thinking Thursday, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, if your client really likes this house, we do have an offer. So do you want to bump up your showing? And then as far as price shifting, the interesting thing is that over the last few years, there's been a pinch of increase in equity, but then it kind of goes down, then it goes up. It's like a lot of bouncing around, just like the rates. And so sure, there's been a little bit of an increase, but it's not significant. And there's a lot of stabilization in there, just kind of compensating for when we did go up so drastically, which is not a bad thing, but it's a very confusing thing as prices are bopping around the place. And then technically, if we go strictly by definition, it is a seller's market because there are not enough houses for inventory, and it's all about supply and demand. So, by pure definition, but when I'm out there with my buyers, it sure feels like it's a buyer's market when we're looking at a house that has been on the market for a long time. And just the other day, we went out, we found one. Unfortunately, it's a professional's market for real estate agents. You really want an agent who has a lot of experience, because I would say that this poor agent who represented this property, just there were not adequate pictures. The features of the home, way, there was so many that we discovered when we got there, and the house was so impressive, but the pictures were so not. And so we ended up getting a lot of built-in equity in the property. um, it had appraised for 1,280,000, and we picked it up for a million. So there's a lot of equity that we picked up in there. So it kind of depends. But then again, I had my sellers, we listed right at the sweet spot. We got multiple offers, and we listed at 730. We ended up giving 735. So right there, not a ton extra, but what was happening in the market was about 3% negotiation. So we ended up recapturing that. So it's interesting. Like it's just a crazy market. You can't really say. So what about the rates?
Okay, so the interest rates have been fun to watch. Over the last like 45 days, we've been trading in a really like tight window.
Hmm.
And the main reason being is with the government shutdown, we're not getting nearly as many reports as we're used to getting, right? Usually we'd get a BLS jobs report at the start of the month. We missed ours on October 3rd, and now we're going to likely miss ours for November that's coming out this Friday. So these are reports that are eventually going to come out, right? But it's hard because when that data comes out, they're going to look at it and say, well, it's 30, 60 days old. It doesn't have the same clout that it normally would. And so we've also had Jerome Powell come out. He's the Federal Reserve Chairman, and he said, "Look, guys, we're not going to be cutting in December if we don't have the government open back up and we're receiving these reports. Like we're kind of flying blind at this point, and so it's imperative that the government reopens so that we can start getting the data we need to then reflect correctly on interest rates and everything like that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I imagine we're going to keep trading in a really tight spread on that specifically until that does open up and actually, gives us some more insight into it.
Yeah, crazy, crazy Utah real estate market for
Yep.
2025. So what is interesting too is that it's all about supply and demand, right? And there is this misperception that there is so much inventory out there. Like everyone feels like, oh, we have so many choices, which compared to like if you were looking during COVID time, yeah, there's so much more inventory. But if you look at the numbers of how many buyers there are that are in the market, there is not enough houses for buyers, and there is a good chunk, like a fourth of buyers are still not making a decision. There's a little bit more movement since there's been some rate cuts. There's a little bit more movement. People are coming out, they're starting to make some decisions, but you already can feel it in the market. You can already see the homes starting to move and not as many choices, right? So new construction, there's certain cities like Bountiful, or if you're talking about Farmington, those areas and other cities, there's not a lot of opportunities for new construction. So there's just small little pockets. So it's hard to supplement with new construction unless you're doing like townhomes or condos. And then also like there's just a lot of craziness, a lot of misunderstanding of the market. So communication really, really is the key. If we got more inventory, everybody would be happy because then there might be more inventory for buyers. But there's this misconception that there's an overabundance, which is a false reality. Um, but there have been some opportunities to negotiate. So, like I said, crazy market. Like it just depends very specifically on the house that you're looking at. Yeah. So
Well, and
pricing
the
strategy.
interesting thing too, I'm just thinking of a couple different clients that we helped over the last 30 days, right? We had one specifically that was purchasing south of BYU in Springville, and the specific home that they ended up falling in love with hit the market on the first day. They came in, offered 5,000 above asking, no concessions, and they got it. And they beat out three other offers to get that one. And then we had a different client too purchasing in the same area. They ended up deciding to buy a home that was similar in price range, upper fours. But because the home had sat on the market for 100 plus days, they went in, offered 10,000 below asking, and asked for $8,000 in closing costs and got it. And so, I mean, when I look at it, it's really so specific for each buyer as far as what they're looking to do and what their ability is, in terms of down payment and the cash that they're bringing in. And so I just love how, like you said before, Janet, it really is just a professionals market where each scenario is going to be so different, but both can end up in a win-win situation, which is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect lead in to pricing strategy because, like, I will tell you a real example. So, I have a client who 100% was like, let's just test the market. That's exactly what he was saying. Let's just test the market. And evidence was showing all of your neighbors sold for 680,000. That is your price, friend. Now, granted, he did have a kitchen in the basement. There were some other things about his home that did merit a higher price. There was some unique stuff going on, and I was like, you know what, we definitely want to push her price, but he wanted to go 800,000, and let's just test the waters. And the what people don't understand is that if you list at 800,000 and the market is silent, like it will reject you if you're too high, and it rejects you like that, then by the time you get to the right sweet spot, you're behind everybody and they're just like counting you off. And then they're to that point where they're like, well, now we're going to offer 10,000 less and we're going to ask for 8,000 in closing costs. Well, luckily he's a smart guy. He listened to me. We listed right at the sweet spot, and we ended up listing at 730,000, which was higher than what his neighbors got and justified. And then we ended up getting multiple offers, and like you said, again, it was only 5,000 above, but no other negotiations. So phenomenal, phenomenal. He got way more than he would have if he would have wasted those days on the market, a lot longer, a lot more stress to wait to get an offer and finally get the house closed, all the paying of the bills during that time, and he got his best and highest value. So, it's very, very important. Price reductions to buyers are never a good sign because they're like, oh, that seller was, overstretching. So, and then it also looks like, well, maybe they're desperate because they keep coming down in price. Maybe there's a reason why they keep coming down in price. They have urgency. So communication is key in all aspects, 100%. Um, but yeah, and I think you had some ideas about buyers and pricing strategies.
Yeah, so I mean, if I was a buyer in this specific market, a lot depends on what my needs are, right? If I'm going to go turnkey, I'm almost just going to say, okay, I'm looking at anything that's hit the market over the last 2 weeks, and what's the fresh and the newest. I'm probably going to have less negotiation power, but I'm going to get exactly what I want because there is a little bit more inventory than what we've seen in the last couple of years, which is good. The other flip side of that would be to say, hey, if I'm a buyer and I want to get the absolute best deal, let's start looking at anything that's 100 days plus on the market, because if they've been on for 3+ months, they're likely going to be way more negotiable and saying, hey, look, we'll give you some money for your closing costs, or we'll take a little bit less off the purchase price. And so that's what I would likely do if I was a buyer is, if you want to get some built-in equity, let's go look for those houses that have the ugly pictures, the ones that just weren't listed correctly, for one reason or another, and find that built-in equity that we can go get.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You're very wise. So, winning as a buyer in 2025, preparation is the key, and I think you're going to tell me about this as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is getting pre-approved, right? Nobody's going to take you serious if you're like, yeah, I haven't talked to my lender. I'm going to get around to it in a week or two, but hey, this is the offer that we're thinking. They're just going to cross it out and send it back to you and say, nope, rejected. So know your numbers, and then also eat like you said before, Janet. Each city and neighborhood is just so different as far as how it's selling. I'm seeing that for sure in Utah and Salt Lake County, as far as just, there's certain pockets that are definitely moving quicker than other pockets just due to, newness or different things. And so, know the different strategies for each city is a big thing. And then also know how to make a creative offer. Sometimes we can get appraisal waivers, which are really cool. If you're putting down like 15 to 20% or more times than not, we'll get an appraisal waiver, which means you don't need an appraisal. And that's a big deal for the seller. If they're looking at this saying, hey, we don't need to have the buyer do an appraisal, like they accept the value, well, that might help you to, get a little bit more negotiating power if you have that. And we can actually double check those before you even put an offer on the property by running it through the system to see if we get the appraisal waiver. So that can be a big deal. And then flexible on closing costs. I've seen a couple recently where they have lease backs for 15 to 30 days. So sometimes they'll buy the property and the seller will give them a little bit extra in closing costs or different things if they give them 30 days to rent back for free. And then also escalation clauses. This is a good one where if you are in that multiple bid situation, sometimes you do want to stretch up another 5,000 to get the house to beat out somebody else, and it's worth it to do that because either the value's there or it's a one of a kind house that you won't be able to get if you let that one slide by.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Again, you know your stuff. I love it. So winning as a seller, I have my certifications in staging, and staging will increase the value 7 to 11%. So it basically pays for all of the services that you're going to need to get you to where you want to be. And the basic of staging, if you want to know the biggest secret, is the cleaning and the decluttering. So if you were thinking staging is going to cost a lot, it's going to cost a lot of time. It is going to cost a lot of time and
mm,
effort, but it's not necessarily that doesn't equate to money, because if you're willing to put in the effort, like you can get it to where it's going to be staged really well. And I do walk my clients through and I do help them to create sight lines, open up the space. We're selling space, right? I do help them minimize. I do help them create the atmosphere that we want, like keep the focus on the fireplace. Maybe they have a couch in front of it. They have, and then they have a workstation in their family room because they've been working. So they have their office and their family room is one room. So we do some really fun things like that to help. And it does make a huge difference. You will sell a lot quicker when people can catch the vision of the space and the purpose for which they want to use the space. Professional photography is a must. I have a phenomenal photographer and he does drone photography, he does still pictures, and then we do videos. And we do really fun videos that have to do with digital marketing, internet marketing. It's such a big deal. People love it. They want to see inside other people's homes. How many shows are there on TV that are all reality about people buying and selling houses? Like, that's a big deal. People are very invested in the housing market and timing on the market. Normally and typically, I would tell you, I've been doing this for 20 years, and normally I would say, oh, we probably just want to chill and then let's list in the spring. And that is weather related in Utah. So, whatever the spring looks like is, when is it snowing, when is it not? Typically, sometime around the end of February, March. Um, but this year has been bonkers. Like, I am just hopping because there's so many oddities in the market this year that people are coming out of the woodwork because guess what? The media is telling them it's a good time to buy, it's a good time to sell. So they're listening, and I'm not opposed. It's creating a lot of fun opportunities for buyers and sellers. And so that's a unique situation specific to this year. Negotiating like different tactics, again, it's very individualized to each and every property. But where I'm a consistent listing agent as well as a buyer's agent, I see what other people like, what they're negotiating, how much they're negotiating. I'm familiar with the different areas and the neighborhoods so that then I can help the clients come together. And the biggest thing is communication. A lot of times the seller's agent, like, they're going to tell them, they're going to spill the beans. I don't think they should. I think that they should hold it a little bit closer to the vest. But it's great when they just start talking, because they get nervous and they think, well, this house has been on the market for a little while, and my seller does have a new construction. My seller has a need to move. Like, that's a good trigger for me to know. We have a little bit of negotiation room. So it's all about the communication for sure, for sure.
Well, and as I look at it, this is really the time to have professionals in your corner, right? To have both of us take a look at what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's buying, selling, different things like that. And so, what we'd recommend is get on our schedule, right? Whether it's November, December, January, let's just start to get in those conversations and really figure out, okay, what does the timeline look like? And what's going to be the best strategy to use for what you're wanting to accomplish?
Yeah, let's go through individual because it's so individualized. Houses and people match, and I love that about real estate. And timing's a big part of that. So it's perfect to jump in there, get educated so that you can make a good decision. Well, thanks for your time today, Zach. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Janet. Take care.